Recording.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to give it just a couple minutes for everyone to trickle in. We're really glad to have you join us on a Friday. All right, welcome. You're at the EDC webinar. My name is Emily Barney. I run a company called Visionality. I'm here with you as a business owner. I'm an EDC client, and I'm just kind of here as like Juliana's wacky sidekick to help you all relate to the really detailed information that she provides. The fabulous Claire, so lucky you, you're with your substitute teacher. You may have seen a poll pop up, so we want to get a better understanding of you, our audience, and how you may have interacted with EDC. So please take a couple minutes and complete that poll, and we really appreciate it. A little bit of housekeeping. First, everyone is muted, so you don't need to worry about background noise. If you have questions, please submit them using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. If you do put them in the chat, our team on the back end is just going to remind you to put them in the Q&A. If you have any tech issues at all, please put them in the chat. We've got Brianne, Nico, and Jahi on my team, and they're standing by to help. This is being recorded, and you'll get an email with a link to the recording and any resources that we mentioned during the webinar within the next few days. Next, we're holding these webinars weekly. They alternate Wednesdays and Fridays. So this is our first Friday, and the next webinar will be Wednesday of next week. And we will get you an email to register, and we hope you'll join us. If you're joining us just recently, you're going to see a poll pop up. We'd love for you to take a couple seconds to let us know who you are and how you've interacted with EDC. And so it appears that our fabulous presenter is running a couple minutes late. And so what I'm wondering is if you all have a couple easy questions. Oh, Juliana's here, thank goodness. I can't be Juliana. Phew.
Good morning.
I was vamping. Isn't 2021 is just as fun as 2020, right, everyone? Didn't we think it was over?
We did.
So we're just going to toss you right in the deep end, Juliana. So I would like to introduce the fabulous Juliana Ramirez. She's one of the superstar EDC consultants, and she also runs this fabulous bookkeeping service in Ventura County called JR Bookkeeping. And we are, holy cow, so lucky to have you, Juliana. Speaking like business owner to EDC consultant, you know, I had some questions with my second round PPP, and I just shot them over to Juliana, and she got me questions right back, and I was able to submit my second round. So just like on behalf of our community, Juliana, we are so grateful. We are better as a business community that we have you. So
thank you so much. I really appreciate the honor of allowing me to share a little bit of my knowledge with you guys. And one of the things I've learned is to make the complex into simple. And that's what my ability is, or at least I hope that that's what I can provide. So thank you again, and thank you for your patience. I was having some technical difficulties here, but I'm on. All right, so let's get right into it. Claire already, I was already introduced. So our key features, what I want to do today is talk to you about what's available from federal options, state options, local options, and of course the expanded unemployment benefits. This is probably, once again, information you've already heard, and we are going to leave plenty of time for questions so that we can answer them as best as we can, and we can help you through them. So we're going to be talking about the Paycheck Protection Program and all its layers. Also the Employee Retention Tax Credit for those of you who have employees and how you can take advantage of those. Employer Payroll Tax Deferral, which is also available for both the employee and the employer. EIDL advanced grants, there's a clarification on what those grants are and how they're going to be available. The EIDL loans, the SBO grant program, the SBA Express Bridge loan, the SBA debt relief, the California Relief Grant Program, a little bit of an update on that, and local business disruption loans. So regarding the patient protection program, that was resumed on June 11th. By now, all lenders, at first it was just the community banks that were open. Now all banks are open. All banks that have opted to participate in this program are open. So this Paycheck Protection Program, the purpose of this program is to allow businesses to keep their workforce employed. And for that, there are three layers. There's the first draw, the second draw, and a modified first draw. The purpose of the first draw, you can get up to 10 millions to help your businesses, again, keep your employees. The eligibility is for sole proprietors, independent contractors, self-employed individuals, and businesses with less than 500 employees in operations as of 2/15/2020. You also need to, there's a particular qualification for businesses with 72 that start with an AIC code of 72 that has not received a prior PPP loan. On the second draw, it's also the same provisions as the first one. However, for this one, the loan amount can be only up to $2 million. And it's also available to sole proprietors, independent contractors, self-employed individuals, and businesses with less than 300 employees. Now, for this one, you must have exhausted your PPP loan and experienced more than 25% decline gross receipts in a quarter compared to 2019. For the modified first draw, this is also the forgivable loan, and this is for those businesses that already received a PPP loan or that received a PPP loan in 2020, but were not able to obtain additional funds that were not available the first time due to subsequent program changes. This also, the eligibility is that the existing PPP borrowers did not receive loan forgiveness by December 27. So if you had a loan and you could have qualified for more, but you only got a particular amount, and your loan has not been forgiven, then you can reapply for a first draw PPP loan. If you previously return some or all of your draw PPP loans, or under certain circumstances, request to modify their first draw PPP loan amount if they previously did not accept the full amount for which they were eligible. So this is mainly designed for those businesses who maybe took the loan, but then, decided to return it. Now they can go and apply again as a first draw. As far as within the Patient Protection Program, we have the first draw loan forgiveness. And this is forgiveness after you have exhausted all your funds, your 8 or 24 weeks have already ended, and you've fulfilled all the loan terms. You can get full forgiveness. You can also, in order to obtain for forgiveness for both the first and the second, you need to have employee compensation levels maintained. The loan proceeds are spent on payroll costs and or other eligible expenses, and at least 60% of the proceeds are spent on payroll costs. And to apply for forgiveness, you need to contact your lender and complete the correct form. Most businesses or most lenders have created their own portal and have already been sending that information for you to apply for forgiveness. They're already requesting what type of documentation you need to provide within their portal. So once you provide them with that documentation and they go through the process of seeing if everything on that application is accurate and it qualifies for forgiveness, then they're going to submit it to the SBA and then communicate with you to let you know if your loan has been forgiven. Next, we have the Employee Retention Tax Credit. Now, the purpose of this credit is a refundable advanceable tax credit above to $14,000 per employee. This is for businesses with 500 or fewer employees that experience more than 20% decline of gross receipts in a quarter compared to 2019. Employers can immediately access to this credit by reducing employment tax deposits they are otherwise required to make. Also, if the employer's employment tax deposits are not sufficient to cover the credit, the employer may get an advance payment from the IRS. And because this credit can be applied to wages already paid after March 12, 2020, many struggling employers can get access to this credit by reducing upcoming deposits or requesting an advance credit on Form 7200, which is the advance of employer credits due to COVID-19. So if you have a payroll company or you're doing your own payroll, when you process your 941s, which is your quarterly form for the fourth quarter, this is where you could apply for this credit. And again, if that credit is not enough, then you can request for an advance credit. I highly encourage you that if you have a payroll provider or you have you're working with your bookkeeper or tax accountant who files these forms for you, that you check in with them prior to filing this fourth quarter 941, because this is where you can apply for this credit. There's also the Social Security employee and employer portion deferral. The purpose of this is to allow employers to defer the deposit and payment of the employer's share of Social Security taxes and self-employed individuals, to defer payment of certain self-employment taxes, and employees who also elect to participate. This is the taxes that you withhold, the Social Security portion of your employees' payroll taxes that you withhold from your employee, and also the Social Security portion that you pay for on behalf of your employee or that you match for your employee. All employers are eligible to make this deferral. And the Consolidated Appropriations Act that was signed in law on December 27 extended the period that the deferral taxes are withheld and paid ratably. The period is now for the entire year. Prior, it was just for the, from the second quarter forward, but it is now for the entire year. And also it extends through the end of 2021, which in this case, for those payments that are due at the beginning of 2022, they will be able to pay them by January 3rd. The next couple other options that there are the economic injury disaster loans and a targeted EIDL advance. I believe last week when we shared about this EIDL grant, this is designed to get a full, $10,000 for those businesses that did not receive the full $10,000 at first. However, it is important to note that this is a targeted EIDL advance. To be eligible for this, let's say match up to the 10,000. So if you only received 2,000, but you were looking for the additional 10,000. What's important to note here is that this is for those employers that had 300 or fewer employers located in a census tract eligible for new market tax credit, that experienced 30% reduction in gross receipts for an 8-week period between 2/2020 and 12/31/2020 compared to a similar period in 2019. I know there's a lot of question about if we are located within, that new market tax credit. We are still awaiting more clarification or more guidance from the SBA to give us information about, what are these targeted new market tax what businesses are located in a census tract eligible for this new market tax credit. So keep in mind that not everybody is going to be able to apply for this, difference of the $10,000. Originally, that was what the wording was, but the reality is that it is a targeted EIDL advance. So this is they're going to give priority to those to those types of businesses. And of course, the EIDL loan is still available. The purpose of this loan is to meet financial obligations and operating expenses that could have been met had the disaster not occurred. It is designed for working capital and normal operating expenses. An example of that could be continuation of healthcare benefits, rent, utilities, fixed debt payments, etc. And the terms for that type of loan is at 3.75% for businesses, 2.75% for forgiveness. I'm sorry, for nonprofits. Um, the loan terms can be up to 30 years, and there's no prepayment penalty or fees. The collateral requirement is for those loans that are $25,000 or more. There's going to be a personal guarantee required, and the SBA uses a general security agreement known as the UCC, designating business assets as collateral. That means that if you obtain this loan and you need to, you decide to sell your business or close your business, you will need approval from the SBA to be able to, to close the business, because you'll still have this financial obligation, especially since it's a 30-year loan or a 30-term year loan. Other coronavirus relief options are the Life Venue Grant. The purpose of this grant is 10 million or 45% or of the 2019 gross earned revenue, whichever is less. It is important to note that the eligibility for this is a live venue operator or promoter, theatrical producer or live organization operator, a museum operator, a motion picture theater operator, or a talent representative who has experienced at least 25% reduction in gross earned income. What's important here to note is that if if your receipts or your business receipts are mainly the main source of income of these receipts is from live venue events or from live performances, then that's how you can know you would qualify. If your main receipts are not from a live venue or from an event live, then it wouldn't qualify. It's mainly, for an example, if there is a restaurant that occasionally has a band playing, the main source of that income for that business is not the live performances. It's actually the restaurant itself or the bar itself. That's the best way that you can think about it. So of course, in the Q&A, we can talk more about that. There's also the SBA Express Bridge Loans. This enables businesses who currently have a business relationship with an SBA Express lender to access up to $25,000 quickly. So if you already had a relationship with an SBA lender and already had a loan, you can contact them and ask them for that express loan. This is also if you have an urgent need for cash while waiting for a decision and disbursement on a economic injury disaster loan, you may qualify for this express disaster bridge loan, and you can get up to $25,000. It's a fast turnaround and will be repaid in full or in part by proceeds from the EIDL loan. So if you haven't applied for the EIDL loan, but you're already working with an SBA lender like EDC, probably, if you receive this 25,000, then and you're just waiting for the EIDL itself to be received, and you can pay this loan. It's that bridge. It creates that, helps with that cash flow. And of course, if you had already received a loan from an SBA lender in the past, prior to September 20th, if you had a loan from them and, obviously because of the pandemic, you are, struggling, then the SBA will pay 6 months of your principal, interest, and any associated fees that borrowers owe for all current, again, 7A, 504, and microloans in regular servicing status, as well as new 7A, 504, and microloans disbursed prior to September 20th. So just keep that in mind if you already have this loan. On the state level, there is the California Small COVID-19 Relief Grant. If you were with us last week, we went through most of the details of this grant. The round one is closed, and by now, some businesses are starting to receive emails with requests for either more information or their bank information if they didn't provide it at the time of the application. And are being taken now through that next step of if they were selected and their grants were if they are getting the grant, what the next steps is for that. If you did not get selected, you would also be notified as far as if if you were selected or not, and what the next steps are. As you know, any applicant that is waitlisted will not need to complete an application during the second round. So make sure that if you already applied for this loan, and you are notified that you're going to get that communication from Landistry letting you know what the next steps are. For the second round, the application opens on February 2nd, and it closes on February 8th. And the start of approval notifications is expected to be February 11th to the 18th. As you know, there was a massive amount of applicants that the land district had to extend that deadline. We're hoping, or they're hoping, that this is not going to happen on this second round, but expect to experience a little bit of that distress again. Hopefully a little less, just because those that already applied are going to hopefully make it into the second round. And this grant program is not in a first come, first serve, so keep that in mind. For more information on this, we highly encourage you to visit their website, which has a complete overview of the program, and they're also posting updates there. So I would encourage you to visit that constantly, if if you want to know or learn more. They also you can also obtain access to the application guides for both for-profit businesses and nonprofit organizations, which provide step-by-step guidance on how to complete your application properly and successfully. Also, if you're a business that collects sales tax, there has been the sales tax due dates have been extended. For example, if you for those businesses that were that needed to do a prepayment for November on December 24th, their extension due date is March 24, 2020. And for those businesses that need to file their fourth quarter sales tax return, the original due date was February 1st, and now it's been extended to April 30th. If you visit this link for the additional dates, pretty much most of the due dates have been extended, have been given an extension of 3 months. But I will encourage you that if you're a business that is collecting sales and use tax, or are working with the CDTFA and collecting any fees on their behalf, make sure that you check in to make sure that your program has that extension, which most programs have, and what your new due date is, especially if you need that additional time to make those payments. Very briefly on the expanded unemployment benefits, as you know, there has been, there are 3 pandemic unemployment assistance, which provides unemployment benefits for people who don't usually qualify for regular state unemployment insurance. There's also pandemic emergency unemployment compensation, which is a benefit extension for people who have used all benefits available in the regular unemployment insurance claim, and also pandemic additional compensation, which is an additional $300 federal stimulus payment automatically added to each week of benefits received from December 27 through March 13, 2021. Visit their website to get the latest. If you're already someone who is, who has already applied for unemployment and are struggling to get answers to the questions regarding your expanded unemployment benefits, I encourage you to, contact us to see how we can assist you with navigating, those hurdles that you are having. And then local disaster options. The EDC Disaster Loan Fund is still open. In addition to our traditional EDC loan funds, we are offering a 4.25 interest loan from $5,000 to $50,000 through our Disaster Loan Fund to give a cash flow boost to businesses impacted by reduced sales, supply chain disruption, or other challenges related to COVID-19. The first 3 months is interest only, and it's a 48-month term. Also, Women's Economic Ventures has a Weave Restart loan. in addition to their existing WAVE basic loan program. WAVE provides capital to Santa Barbara County and Ventura County businesses who are now open or eligible to open under the most current government orders, subject to change based on updated orders. Visit waveonline.org. Also, if you still are looking for other options, like other lenders, you can go to this website, sba.gov, COVID-19 funding resources, funding sources, to find more lenders like EDC and Women Economic Ventures within our area. You would just plug in your zip code to see what other programs are, or what other loan funds or programs are available within our local area. Of course, you can always visit our website, edcollaborative.com/COVID-19. This is our COVID-19 business resources page. Please, we update it there constantly so we can have the latest there. If you miss any of this information from this webinar, and don't forget that we have no-cost consulting services. I'm gonna now go into the Q&A. I like the Q&A portion.
It's my favorite.
I tried to rush through this.
It's my favorite. I think it's the most useful because so many people have very nuanced questions. And so I just think this is a really valuable moment for us to provide really tailored experience. And Juliana, I wanted to ask you very quickly, we have one or maybe a few members of our attendants who thought that this might have been Spanish speaking. Could you just take 2 seconds to tell them that we have Spanish webinars, and we posted, I think, a link to find them, but I just wanted to make this more inclusive for them.
Yes, of course. Buenas tardes a todos. Soy Juliana y me avisan que están aquí algunos de los participantes escuchándonos en español. Vamos a tener otros seminarios. Si pueden encontrar la información, los enlaces están en el chat. Este seminario es en inglés, pero si tienen necesitan más ayuda en español, por favor no duden en contactarnos, visitar nuestra página para ver cuáles otros seminarios tenemos en español. Muchas gracias por estar aquí. Espero que la información esté siendo útil. All right.
Thank you. Now, in the Q&A and a couple places in the chat, I've started to see this theme of people not wanting to take out loans. And I wanted you and I to have a really frank conversation about this, business owner to business owner and EDC to EDC client. And so I just want to speak to everyone who's on this webinar. I am where you are, and I have been where you are. And, trying to continue my business through Thomas Fire and then Montecito and then Borderline and then Hill Woolsey, it was insurmountable for me. And I am so grateful that I took out an EDC Thomas Fire loan. And that is part of why I'm with you today. And I resisted for years. I mean, I think I took out a Thomas Fire loan the week of Hill Woolsey, because that was just like my breaking point. Like, bills were due and I had no cash in the bank. And so I just want to really normalize taking out debt for the other business owners in the room. I had so much shame around it. And I don't think I would be here if it wasn't for EDC and that disaster loan program. So I don't want you to see it. It's not a negative. It's a tool to bridge the gap, because you have a successful business and our community needs you here. And these are incredible tools to help you bridge that gap. And so again, I've got my EDC loan from the Thomas Fire, and then I took PPP. It's forgivable. It's incredible. And then what Juliana advised me to do is to go ahead and take that EIDL loan, and it's just sitting in my bank account, and I'm not spending it, and I'm not doing anything crazy with it. It's just my safety net. And again, it's a 3% loan. And so, again, I'm not spending it. It's sitting there. And when I need to start making payments, I'll make those payments out of that capital. So don't take on wild, risky debt. Don't do anything crazy with it. But like these really are safety net programs designed to help business owners get through. So have I sufficiently done my soapbox?
Yeah, of course, you've done an excellent job explaining that, and like you said, as a business owner, of course we don't want to have that. That's why we have our business. However, one key element about all of these programs, especially loan programs, that people need to remember is that these are, no prepayment penalty, which means if you take the money, just like you very well said, it's a safety net. This is because it's uncertain. You don't know if you're gonna. I mean, look, we thought that by June we would be okay. In March we thought by April. In April we thought by July. In July we thought by December. In December now we're thinking. Right now, the reality of things is that we may still go through not even, December probably, I don't know. It's uncertain. And this is why it's so hard to, obviously to think of, now I owe this money. Well, you don't have to use it if you don't need to. Yet if if you take part of it and then can repay half of it right away, if you didn't use it all, there's no prepayment penalty. So let's just remember that, because you won't be penalized if you don't use the money and return it.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we're off our soapbox. Let's get to these questions.
Yes. All right.
Have you heard of anyone receiving the California grant program?
I've only heard of some businesses that have been asked for their banking information. That's all I've heard. That's it. I haven't heard of somebody already saying I received the funds. I was just told that they've been asked for their banking information, which is probably a good sign.
Probably a good sign. Same. I kept refreshing my email. I also applied. I have not received an invite to offer my bank account information. That period was supposed to close today. I'm assuming it's at like 11:59 today. And also remember, they will give you a decision if you are ineligible or if you are eligible. And if you are eligible, you're rolled in to the second round. So you do not need to apply for the second round. Now, Juliana, is there a way to like cure any ineligibility or something? So if someone's deemed ineligible, should they give EDC a call or something to see if there's a way to like fix it, or it's just kind of a done thing?
I think that it's kind of like a done thing, but again, I don't think it is a bad idea, if any, to come and let's talk about, why you were, not eligible, because that will then clarify, your concern. And then also, like you very well said too, if maybe you completed the application incorrectly and you didn't realize that you did, and that's made you ineligible, then maybe you can, not maybe, you can go and apply again to be eligible.
So this is a PPP second round question asking about the 25% decline. So my understanding is you need to show a year over year 25% decline for any quarter, 2019 compared to 2020. So what that means is when you run your side-by-side P&L, profit and loss, you look at the very top line, which is your gross receipts or your gross income, and you run it quarter one, 2019 to quarter two, 2020, and you see if you get a 25% decline. And if not, go ahead.
No. Sorry, I was gonna say it's the same quarter in the year compared to the previous year. So first quarter to first quarter, or second quarter to second quarter.
Great. So what I did is I just had my QuickBooks up and I just ran like the 4 different quarters to find out which of the 4 quarters I had the largest reduction in my gross receipts. And then that's the one I submitted during my second round PPP.
Yeah.
Okay.
And QuickBooks has that ability. I mean, I've been loving it because it's like, okay, I run a profit and loss for the year. I total it for the year, I total it by quarter. Then I go to compare to previous period, including percentage. And that there gives you the percentage itself. So you know exactly what percentage it is, and you got to meet the at least 25%.
QuickBooks is magic.
Mhm.
What is the date that PPP round one funds must be exhausted?
So by the end of your cover period,
So
all
either
right?
8 weeks or 24 weeks.
Yes, because remember, that's one of the provisions that you need in order for that loan to be first forgiven, you need to have used it between 8 and 24 weeks. And to be, to qualify for forgiveness. If you didn't, right? So obviously that means you didn't meet that provision. So you need to make sure that it is spent within the 8 to 24 weeks. And now with this new update, now you can choose either, anywhere from 8 to 24 weeks. It doesn't have to be exactly 8 or exactly 24. It could be 9, it could be 10, it could be 12, just as long as you've exhausted the funds within that period.
Great. And a follow-up to that, I've heard of business owners who were kind of paralyzed when they got that PPP and they were afraid to use it because they were afraid to mess it up or whatever. So if you did receive first round PPP and you're outside of your 24 weeks and you still have it, do you need to give that money back, or it just means you can spend that money, you just need to pay it back? It's no longer forgivable.
So I would check with your bank, because remember, the provision says that you need to provide proof that you use those funds and how you use them within that cover period. That's very important to understand. It's within that, within that period. In other words, if we wouldn't have had a round two, let's just think about it this way. If we didn't have a round two of PPP, that means that right now you will be dealing with that PPP, PPP one, which means that your cover period would have ended either at the
Right.
8 or the 24. So let's say the 24 weeks, if you had to apply for forgiveness, then that means, did you use all the funds or did you not?
Got it.
Check with your lender on that, because of course, there could be interpretations from each lender, which is not uncommon. So I would say just make sure that you check with your lender regarding that. But the understanding is that you must have exhausted the funds within your 24 weeks.
Great.
Yeah.
For ERTC, do you need to show a 20% decline?
Yes, so that is very important too, that you need to meet, those requirements. I highly encourage you to, payroll providers have great resources. If you have Paychecks, if you have ADP, if QuickBooks has a tool that will take you and run you through those processes, it is a bit hectic. So it's a bit difficult to go through the entire item. We will need to do a webinar just about ERTC to go through and understand how it works, right? Because you need to make sure that the wages are eligible, the employees, the period. I mean, it is a combination of things. So I would highly encourage you to check in with either your tax accountant or your payroll provider to help you and guide you to how to navigate that particular credit.
Great. If we receive PPP and other COVID relief in 2020, do I include that in the revenue calculation when comparing 2019 to 2020 to show that 25% decrease?
So I'm glad that this question came up, because I know there had been some confusion as to what is gross receipts. Do we include COVID relief grants or not? As a matter of fact, there is a common Q&A that explains how to calculate gross receipts if you're using your tax return. So it's important to understand that if you're using your tax return, then you would need to follow a particular, depending on the type of filer you are, that you follow which lines you need to add, because it is not a straight gross receipts. It is actually line, for every different filer. So if, obviously there's a different form for partnerships, there's a different form for Schedule C filers, there's a different form for 1120S, 1120. So it is important that if you're using your tax returns, that you use the correct form and the correct numbers. And again, we can help you with that if depending on the type of filer you are. If you're using your profit and loss, then normally you wouldn't put that COVID grant as regular revenue, right? You would put it under the line. So if you're using your P&L, then you would just do the top line. If you're using your taxes, that's a different, because based on on my research on what line items you would include, those grants will be included there. Most people haven't filed or have not started filing their 2020. So right now they don't have those grants in that total. So just keep that in mind. Whatever your 2019 taxes, if you're using those, that's what you're gonna be using on the calculation.
Great. And for anyone like me who felt underwater during that conversation, I'm going to ask my team to put the EDC contact information into the chat, because
Yes.
this is what EDC is here for, to help. You know, I'm really good at running my business and being a nonprofit consultant. I am not really good at being Juliana. And so I'm going to keep plugging this, like, call them up because they're here to help you. Okay, back off my soapbox. Can we use our Schedule K tax form instead of Schedule C to determine our payroll cost? I'm self-employed, no employees, but need to be able to pay myself.
No, you cannot use your Schedule K because Schedule K is just the the proceeds from your business, not necessarily the income that you received. Okay, so it's very important that you, again, this is more, you sit down with your tax accountant, or you come and we talk about this, so you can understand the difference. But no, you wouldn't, you would use your Schedule C. There's particular provisions as to why the Schedule C.
Great, thank you. If we received an EIDL loan but not the 10,000 advance, are we still eligible to receive the 10,000? And if so, what do we need to do?
So like we said, it's the targeted advance. It's for those businesses that are in a particular location, not everybody. So we're still waiting for guidance as to, are we located in one of those areas? And if we were, or your business was, then you would qualify for that grant. Obviously the grant funds from the first round were exhausted, and there's that grant advance is no longer available. This new round is providing that grant, but only for targeted areas. So right now there's not enough information as to what are those tax areas. Believe me, I was looking for it and I couldn't find it. So we don't have the full information on that. As soon as that becomes available, come back next week. Hopefully we have more information on that.
Hopefully. All right.
There's no process right now to how to obtain that grant.
Great. Is interest on debt payments allowable for EIDL? So can I use an EIDL loan for debt payments, interest on debt payments?
You can use it for interest and for the actual, payment of the debt itself. So not just interest, but also to fulfill your debt. Because again, remember, this is an injury disaster loan, this is money that you need to continue operating your business. And if part of operating your business was paying back some debt that you had, then that's what this is designed for. So yes, you can use it for both the interest and the payments.
So there were very specific restrictions on what we could use PPP for in order for it to be eligible for forgiveness. Are there restrictions around proper use of those EIDL funds, or are they just really there to be used?
Yeah, so there are provisions. Obviously, there is. It is important that it wasn't just that you just went in and acquired. You just went and bought a car, and now you're trying to pay that that car loan with this new money. That it's not necessarily new debt. It's more for existing debt that was there as of the disaster, which in this case, was February 15th. So just keep that in mind. These are, contracts or, like your rent leases and anything that was already in existence. So keep that in mind as you're using and to continue operating your business.
Yeah, my sort of rule of thumb is I'm not changing anything. I'm just, you're just running. Oh, we lost Juliana. You're just running your business and it's your safety net. But you don't want to do anything new or anything extra, or like you're just running your business like you used to. And that is a little extra help.
And
oh no, not again, Juliana.
Right, that they would have normally not have in their business. So that is exactly for that. That is the type of expenses you can use for. You can use the money for.
Great. I have a client who provides services at fairs. Would he qualify for the SVO?
Fairs. Again, live events. Is a fair considered a live event? I don't, or a live performance event. I don't know. That I don't know the answer to that. I don't, unless, I don't think so, but we can look into that. I don't know the answer to that.
So team, go ahead and grab that from
Yes.
the Q&A and we'll email it to Juliana and we'll figure out. And again, thank you everyone for your patience. This is really like building the plane as we fly it. And so we're just going to continue to give you the most up-to-date information that we can.
I just do have, a question is like, what type of services are these? Because obviously, even though the fair, let's say, would be a live event, but what type of service are you providing? That's how I would, understand or think about, is this for a live performance? Like the type of service I'm providing is for, for live performance, or a live event. That's another. But
And
we
it
will look
may,
more into that.
yeah, so we're getting a couple other questions in the chat. So it sounds like we need to do perhaps a deeper dive on this particular relief group. So we'll, hang with us. We'll try and do maybe a special section in one of these webinars for this specific relief program.
Right. And this is a program that was just released, or it's in the works. So obviously there's more Q&A to come and things like that. So we can definitely do that.
Cool. Would someone that hosts 5-day specialty camping events around the country qualify?
With someone that hosts 5-day specialty camping events, again, this is more for established business who was making money out of these live events. So I don't know if a camping event would be considered a live event. Again, we would definitely look into more, take a deep dive into this program at another time.
And is it true the SVO we're not able to apply just yet? It's a program that's coming, but it's not released yet.
Correct.
Great.
And if you visit sba.gov, you will be able to see the relief, sba.gov. You will be able to click on relief options, and then you'll be able to see all of these programs that I just shared are there more in detail. You can find Q&A. This particular event, grant is it's in the works, or it's being released, and so you'll find that more information there.
Great. So what we're going to do on the back end, everyone who submitted questions on the SVO, my team's going to copy all of those and we're going to start, a Q&A. Once we know more, we'll host a specific thing around this because I can tell there's a lot of interest in it, but we just don't have answers yet. So if we don't address your question, it's because we've archived them, but we have collected it and we will address it as soon as we possibly can when we have answers.
Yes.
SBA debt relief, that includes EIDL loans received in 2020. Oh, so can someone apply for the SBA debt relief for an 2020 EIDL?
Not for an EIDL loan, because the EIDL loan itself, it's a different program, but this is more of a of a 7A, the micro loan, the 504. These are the specific type of loans that were not the EIDL loan. So just keep that in mind.
Got it. So they're under SBA debt relief. There are certain types of loans that qualify. Awesome.
And for that, to clarify what type of loan you have, well, in this case, it was the EIDL loan, but your lender probably already contacted you and let you know that you don't need to worry about payments, at least for those 6 months. But if you're not sure what type of loan you have other than the EIDL loan, then check with your lender to see what type of loan you have.
Good, thank you. And I'm also seeing, again, sifting through the questions and monitoring the chat, there's a huge sense of like pressure and urgency because, because PPP and the SBO isn't open yet and yada, yada. And so my approach has been, I apply for everything and I don't go wild with it. And if I find when I feel secure that I don't need it, I give it back. And so this is one business person's opinion. This is what has made me feel safe to pivot, to act boldly, to really like tighten up my ship during this pandemic. And so Emily, a business owner, Emily, who knows nothing about nobody, that is what I have chosen to do. So Juliana, do you have any parameters around when you absolutely should take these things on or when you absolutely shouldn't take them on?
So the very first thing, and this is one of the things that, Tony, one of our business advisors who's a tax accountant, and Gonzalo, who's also another one of our it's in our finance team. They're a wonderful at, number one, looking at how the business is doing, right? We need to be able to look at what your business finances look like, before COVID, and obviously after COVID. That's number one. Number two is need to be able to analyze and create projections based on, taking on this type of debt. So when we say, if you need it, and in other circumstances, if your business could prove that you did have the ability to pay this debt, right? Because that's the other thing. When you are applying for a loan, you're going to need to be able to prove that you can pay back that loan when things go back to normal, right? Grants are a bit different, and of course, the SBO grant is really designed for more of those large venues. These are like the theaters, the big venues that are not able to operate by nature, just simply because of the current situation. This is not necessarily for the smaller businesses. I mean, as you can see, the grant itself is $10 million, right? Because this is the type of amount of money that these type of, live venue and promoters were able to produce. So obviously, if you are in that industry, and, are producing large, or servicing large, venues, then yes, you may want to look more into it. But if you're a smaller organization, that is only doing a portion of a portion of their events are live, not everything. Like, you got to look at the entire picture. Are you doing 100% of it and it's a live event, or is it just a portion of it? I gave the example of a restaurant having a band playing, right?
Right.
The band cannot apply because they don't have a venue that they receive money from, or their gross receipts come from a live venue. I don't know if that clarifies a little bit more. But going back to the approach of, how much debt can your business take on, be careful, definitely. This is where having a financial advisor by your side is so important. Number one, take a look at where you stand financially, or where you stood financially prior to COVID, because also having, that the ability to see where you really stood. What was your financial position prior to this? How was your business doing? Was it really doing well, and this just simply, came to, to stop that? Or was it already not doing so well, and then this hit, and now this is why you're, much more, in a much worse situation? Should the loan, should you really take on this debt, because you were not already doing so well? So of course, it's complex to see that, but having your finances up to date, it's key, so that we can help you take a look at the entire picture and how much you should take on. That's one. And then two, of course, what you qualify for. So what are you eligible for?
Awesome. Awesome. Um, is the 6B months payments paid by SBA taxable?
No, it's not taxable income. It'll be reflected on on the balance for your loan, pretty much, but
Great.
it's not taxable income.
Great. I'm a sole proprietor. I applied for EIDL grant last March. I don't believe it required a tax return. Was invited to reapply, supplying business bank account in June, submitted end of June, but was recently told there was no record of that submission. I would like to reapply for the grant only. Does that require a tax return, and how do I apply?
So for the grant, unfortunately, you cannot reapply. So if you apply for the grant and you didn't receive it, unfortunately, the funds are already exhausted. There is a second round of those grants, which we mentioned already, but that is only for targeted location area. So you wouldn't be able to apply for the grant only because it's not open unless you were in one of those areas.
Great. I was finally able to get into UI online, but getting paperwork through the mail and the details of payments and for the weeks makes no sense. How can we know what it is supposed to mean?
I think that you need to meet with one of us. We have Megan, who is one of our experts at unemployment and employee, and please contact us. We
Please.
will walk you through it.
Can you still collect unemployment if you are self-employed and take PPP?
Okay, so very good question, because obviously there have been businesses who, preferred not to take the PPP loan because they have unemployment and there was more of a benefit there. Maybe they would receive more money through, unemployment versus PPP. Keep in mind that you cannot obtain both at the same time. However, if there is a lapse in coverage, like, when there was no unemployment for a particular period, then you could, apply, you could obtain, PPP. So just as long as you are not taking both at the same time, you can obtain both. Just make sure that, when you are certifying, you're certifying that you received PPP. So that way they will stop those benefits and then continue them once you no longer have PPP funds. So that is very important to know. You can take advantage of both, just not for the same periods.
Thank you. Follow up. Even if the grants overlap, can we take out federal and state grants and then return them if you realize they would cover the same items?
That would be correct. However, when you have a grant, I mean, I'm just gonna say, especially for us locally, there were businesses that obtained the county grant, which was 5,000. 5,000 goes a long way, but for some businesses, not so much, right? So you could have said, okay, this is for rent for this period, and this other grant is also for rent, but for a different period, right? Because you are not required to submit any documentation for these grants unless you are, asked to do so. So you do need to be prepared to show, proof of how you spend the money. Not that you need to submit it anywhere, but you can use it for the same type of expenses, just not for the same period.
So I can use my Ventura County grant to pay February rent, but I can't use the Ventura County grant and my EIDL loan to pay for February rent.
Correct.
But I could use one for February and one for March.
Correct.
Awesome.
Correct. Because you wouldn't be paying it for the same period. You're not using it for the same things.
Great. One more clarification.
Sorry, just one really quick qualification, because when they ask you, how much rent you paid, you can't say I paid the entire year in that same program as well as the other. So just wanted to make sure that that's why.
Great. I received an EIDL loan, not forgivable, which I used on the business in April. I'm getting to the point where I have to start making repayments, but the business is still closed and I am almost out of funds. Is it possible to either delay the start of the payments with the SBA, or how would making an application for a second loan be affected if I have used a portion of it to start making payments on the first loan?
That's a great question, and I will gain more clarification on that, but it is my understanding that there can be a modification to the previous loan. So I will have more details at our next webinar as to how we can to answer this question better. And again, please take their information, and we can talk more about that.
Great. So team, I'll leave that in the Q&A for you to grab. Clarification on the 25% reduction qualification. Does it only require a 25%, at least 25% drop in only one quarter?
That is correct. It's only one quarter. So if you go to your full, to your 4 quarters and you compare them and you find that one quarter wasn't all 25, or up to 25, but second quarter did, and then the rest of the quarters you were fine, you didn't have a decrease as much. As long as one of the four is there, it shows that's all you need.
Great. PPP question. My sales have only grown in the last year, but I'm really just getting started with my business, so my sales are still very small. With my sales growth, does this make me ineligible for PPP?
If you obtained a PPP before, on the first round, then yes, you would not be able to qualify for a second round, because the second round is specifically for those business that were, that didn't have, that experienced that loss. So you wouldn't qualify for a second PPP, but if you didn't apply for the first PPP, then you do qualify for that.
Great. We got PPP 1 covering only 2 months from PayPal. How do we apply for the half month we didn't get from PPP 1? Can we do it with anyone, or do we need to do it with PayPal?
I believe you would need to go back to your lender because you already have that loan with the SBA. The SBA already has a file with SBA, with that SBA number, which, by the way, something else that I didn't have on one of the slides, but it's important to mention, is that if you do a second round, an application for the second round of PPP, you will need your SBA original PPP loan number. So make sure that you have that handy so that you can also put that in there. And that is, again, if you applied, but you need to modify it, you would need to contact PayPal and see what it is that you need to do. For the most part, the banks like PayPal and Cabbage and Square, most of that information was through a portal, and there was no contact with speaking with somebody, like a local bank here. You could speak with them and they could go back and forth as far as the amount and verifying the amounts. If you completed the application online and you put that amount and they approved you for that, then unfortunately you will need to contact them to go about how can you go for the additional, half of the month.
What is considered proof of using the PPP money?
So let's say that you use PPP for payroll. Well, it is designed to use it for payroll. And if you use all of it for payroll, then your proof is your payroll reports, your 941s, your D9s, your 940s, your W2s, your payroll, your company issued payroll details reports. If you have a payroll provider, like again, Paychex, ADP, Gusto, they have all those forms available in their portal so that you can obtain from them. That would be considered proof. As far as other eligible expenses that are non-payroll, that would be like your rent, your utilities, your interest. Now you can do, some operation costs. Those you will need copies of the canceled checks, stating, what you paid and what you paid for, or a copy of your invoices. So if you pay rent and you don't get an invoice from your landlord, but you have the available lease that you signed with your landlord, you need to be able to prove that you were in this lease prior to obtaining the PPP, or prior to the date that you received it. So you need to make sure that you have documentation to prove that when you made a check for that particular expense, that's how you use that for.
Great. I heard that there may be a new EIDL advance available. Any idea when that will be live? I think we've talked about that a little bit.
We did. There's unfortunately not going to be an EIDL advance just for everybody. It's going to be targeted.
Great. When is the ERTC seminar?
Well, if there's enough interest, well, maybe we can prepare one just specifically for that. What I'm thinking is maybe if there's enough interest on the ERTC and the SVO grant, maybe we can do half of it for ERTC and half of it for SVO. We can maybe do that.
Awesome. For the second round PPP, what periods are covered or will be forgiven?
So from the date of disbursement, so when you apply for the loan, you can apply up through March 31st. So when, from now to March 31st, you can apply for this loan. Once you receive that, your money, the lender, in this case, the bank will provide you with a note from the SBA with your SBA number or loan amount or loan number, and that note states what date is the beginning of your cover period. From that date up to 24 weeks, so it's a period of 8 weeks or anywhere between 8 to 24 weeks. That's what you're going to need to calculate. That's the period that covers for forgiveness.
Great. How can we get the guide for how to calculate gross receipts?
The guide for how to calculate gross receipts, what I will do, if you go to the sba.gov and click for the relief options, then you click on either PPP first draw or PPP second draw. When you click on those two or one of the two, you'll be able to see that there is other links, and one of them is going to do frequently asked questions or how to calculate. It actually does it lay it out for you there. So that's really the best place where you can actually find the list of how you calculate your gross receipts.
Also call the EDC.
Yes, call us. We'll walk through it with you.
Yes. On the California grant, 2 questions. 1, I have not received any communication from Lendistry, any updates. I think we covered that. So give it to me really quick one more time.
Yeah, so we're gonna, Lendistry's already started to contact, those recipients that were eligible or not, and you should be receiving an email pretty soon if you haven't done so already. One thing that I remember from last week that they recommended is to check your spam, check your spam folder. So because that could land there, so check there, and you should be hearing from them pretty soon. So if you don't, then call their customer, service, or email them at their customer service line.
Question 2, when filling out the California grant application, I entered all funding received in the grants received question, including EIDL, PPP, and not just the advance or the Ventura County grant. Is there a way to change this in the application before we move on to the second stage?
Okay, I'm glad this came up because I did bring this question up to Lendistry because there was some confusion. I had one understanding, and then there was, there had been, other, an attendee here that had received different information. So I did pose this question, and they did clarify that it's all the funds, including the loan amount, which did not make sense to me, but they say it's all the amounts. There was no explanation. What they did also make sure to let us know is that this does not affect eligibility. So if your concern is that because you received all of these money, the fact that you state that you received all of these funds, you won't be eligible, that is not true, or that is not the case. So if the amount is incorrect, that's not going to affect your eligibility. If the amount is all that amount, great. If you didn't, I believe that this question is mainly so that they can keep track of, like they have data to know, how many businesses applied that had already benefited from other programs too. So it's not a factor for eligibility.
Great. And so for those businesses who, like me, who did not put in all those loan amounts, we did sign that like a certification document. So do we have an obligation to go back and edit that application?
You're not going to be able to edit the application. If there needs to be clarification, if you have, then they will let you know. I will make sure to ask more detail on that. Again, when I posted that, we did ask that question, I wanted to make sure that if I was wrong, I needed to correct it. And they did say, just put all the funds there. Remember, the most important is that it's not a factor for eligibility. And I will ask if that needs to be corrected. Right. I mean, it was not intentional that you didn't disclose the full amount. So just also keep that in mind.
We're all definitely doing our best. I was just notified that I was denied for first round EIDL advance. I think I qualify. Are there any resources?
There is a, a reconsideration process. Also, I would recommend that you contact EDC so that we can help you and walk you through what that process looks like.
And I also did not qualify. When I applied for an EIDL during Thomas Fire, I was rejected. So like, there's a process, you got this, like there are lots of different safety nets.
Yeah.
Can you use PPP to hire more employees, and can I use it to pay independent contractors?
You can hire more employees, definitely, because it is a paycheck protection. So if you're hiring, especially somebody that was laid off from a different job and you're, bringing back the workforce, definitely. What you cannot do is paid independent contractors, because independent contractors can apply on their own. So if you're paying somebody a 1099, when they file their tax return, that generates a Schedule C, which is what they can apply for their own PPP loan.
Great. If we completed the first PPP incorrectly, I didn't include myself, can we correct it on the first PPP?
That is where you contact your lender and ask, if you can modify your first PPP. Otherwise, and they will give you more guidance as to if it's a yes, how to do it, and if it's a no, then when you apply for this second, for the second round, now to make sure that you include yourself. But
Right.
there is a way to, to correct it. You just need to make sure that your lender, is allowing you to do that, because remember, the PPP loans are being administered by the banking institution. So even though there's provisions by the SBA, it is still being administered by the banks. So the banks have their own portal and the way they process those applications. So it is really more up to the lender and the bank who or the bank who is going to walk you through what that process looks like.
Great. How do I find out if my business belongs to a low income community?
That again, we don't have a clear, I don't have that information as to how we do it. I was doing some research. I did find a little bit more information about that new new market tax credit, which identifies who the low income. However, what I did not find is how I find which locations are in, qualify under that. We are still awaiting more guidance from the SBA, or more information from the SBA.
Great. My tax accountant recommended I use Schedule E to file for my vacation rental business. To qualify for the relief grant, can you only file using Schedule C?
For the California Relief Grant, I believe so. And if you look at the for-profit business guide under the California Relief Grant website, if you go to that guide, within one of those slides, they have a list of which document for each type of entity, similar to what the SBA has. So I would highly encourage you to make sure, to see if a Schedule E is in there, or what for each type of entity, what line item you would need from your tax form.
Excellent. First round PPP was for 100,000. We used 95,000. The remaining 5,000 was converted into a loan. Do we qualify for second draw, having converted it to a loan?
It is my understanding you would qualify for a second draw. Actually, hold on. You must have, no, I'm sorry. You must have exhausted all your PPP loan. I mean, or your PPP funds. Check with your lender. $5,000 should not take you, hopefully, should not take you from having, being able to qualify for a second PPP. But again, the provision is that you should have exhausted all your PPP funds. Now, the other thing to think about is it because it was not forgivable because you didn't use it all, or just because you didn't meet the threshold? Because that's the other thing to remember on the forgivable amount. You must have met the 60% on payroll and 40% on other expenses. If you didn't meet 60%, right, even if you use the full amount, but if you didn't meet the 60%, then that reduces your forgiveness amount. So it is a factor. If you, let's say, use 57% instead of 60%. So that 2% or 3% does reduce your forgiveness. So was it just it wasn't fully used, or it was that you didn't qualify because you didn't meet the 60% threshold? Let's make sure that it is, if you didn't fully use it, check with your bank, because the provision is that you must have exhausted the full, your first PPP funds.
Great. All right, 18 questions, 15 minutes. You think we can do it?
Yes.
How do I apply for an EIDL grant? So talk to me about the grant portion and the loan portion. And
Okay.
someone on my team, see if you can find the website.
Yeah, so again, when you're at that SBA.gov, there's the relief options, and then you'll see all the options of all these programs that I talked to you about, the EIDL loan and the EIDL grant. On the EIDL loan, again, there's no advance anymore, just for everybody. It is a targeted grant. So, and right now for that grant, there's no application or there's no process to apply for that. So you wouldn't be able to apply anyway right now. However, the loan itself, you could, that portal is open and you can apply there, but not for, that wouldn't give you a grant. It would just be to apply for the EIDL loan, which you can use for operational expenses. And it's a term, a 30-year term loan at 3.75% for profit businesses.
Great. And do you have a sense on when we'll know what those targeted areas are?
I don't. I mean, the hope was that we would have information right away once, that information was. I want to say, I'm going to see if we can find more information by our next webinar, which will be next Wednesday, right? So we will make sure that I'll see if I can have more information by then.
I missed out on the 5,000 Ventura County grant. Will there be another one available?
I'm not aware of one right now. So unfortunately, I don't think so.
Yep. I opened the LLC in December 2019, but did not complete business acquisition until August 2020. We made revenue from August to December. It was an existing business with 2019 financials. Do I qualify for EIDL?
Yes, you do, because you are able to prove that you were in existence as of February 15, 2020.
Great. What grants are still open for new applicants like me?
So right now, the open grants, I on one of the, I don't know if you guys took the link from one of the slides for other relief options, and on that information. You can also visit the SBA website, and it has other relief options, and you can enter your zip code, and it will give you a list of anything that's still available and within your zip code that you could apply for. There are a few grants. Obviously, they're more targeted to a particular type of business or a particular type of a group. So I would say that. However, locally here in Ventura, right now we are I'm not aware of any grants other than the California Relief Grant, which will open on February 2nd.
We received forgiveness on PPP1 for the full amount we received. Where does the advance go? I didn't receive any communication on payback for the amount. Who do I contact? So the advance is for the EIDL loan.
Mm-hmm.
So Allison, give me a little more clarification. So PPP didn't have an advance. PPP should have been a lump sum, but for the EIDL loan, early on you got an advance that turned into a grant, so you didn't need to pay it back. Oh, does she mean, remember how a zillion years ago you had to reduce your EIDL advance from your PPP forgiveness? Allison, is that what you're talking about? Give me some clarification.
I think that's what she was talking about. And I was going to say, if she's referring to that EIDL advance that would have been deducted from your PPP forgiveness, then, I mean, you were forgiven for the full amount. So at this point, I don't think you need to worry. But yes, give us a little bit more clarification.
She said we were right. Look at us, Sherlock. All right.
Look.
Today, California announced EDD will shut down until they check fraud. They say They gave 10 days to prove identities. I have not heard anything about this throughout the start of EDD had sent all kinds of paperwork to prove my identity.
So I understand that it is my understanding that at the end of 2020, there was this verification process for those that already had their account open or their claim open. They were because of fraud, they had to go through this verification process. That is probably what this attendee is referring to. But I'm not sure about the 10 days from right now. I checked this morning for any updates on EDD and I didn't see anything different than what I shared. So I will, maybe if you want to give us a call and schedule an appointment, we can walk through, maybe we can refer you to Megan who can, help you navigate all of these, questions and uncertainties within EDD.
Yeah, and a couple webinars ago, we learned of another one of our community members who was a victim of fraud. And so I just want to let everyone know that if you are concerned that you've been a victim of fraud, please contact EDC so that we can help connect you to the right places, because whenever there's money available, fraud becomes rampant. And if you fell victim, you're not alone, and there are places for you to get help.
Yes, yes.
Is the $10,000 received from EIDL taxable?
So it's not taxable, but it does go on your tax return as income. So this is more, so it's not taxable income, but it does go on your tax return as income.
Great. Do you need a city license for these loans and grants? I am insured by the Department of Insurance, and that is why I missed out on the Ventura County grant.
So you need to be able to show that you are an active business. And again, that the California Relief Grant guide gives you the different types of documents you can provide as far as what you can prove that you are an active business. I did, for the Department of Insurance, I'm guessing that you have a certificate or a license. And if you have that license, I mean, and it must be valid, but there must have the location of your business. So there needs to be a way that you can prove that you're an active business.
Great.
Not the license with no expiration date. It needs to tell, that you're an active business.
Great. I am self-employed, no employees. I just write myself a check to pay myself. Taxes are paid quarterly. Do these checks count as proof of use of PPP?
So the checks would, I mean, in reality, when you're self-employed, in order for you to file a Schedule C, you need to produce a profit and loss. So how are you currently, showing, looking at your profit and loss? But yes, these checks would count as proof that you paid yourself, because you would, they will probably have your business name if you have a business account made out to you, and if you on the memo make sure that this is your, your personal draw. So then that should be sufficient for as proof.
Great. Sorry, I'm just scanning through the ones we've already answered. Can you apply for employee retention credit if you received a PPP loan or grant?
Yes, you can. You just need to make sure that you don't apply for the credit for the same period or for the same wages that you did for the PPP. An example, let's say you received the PPP in May. That would be kind of like in the middle of the second quarter, and you exhausted and you used the PPP funds from, let's say May through August, right? So for that period, you wouldn't be able to qualify for the ERTC credit. However, from September or from after the 24-week period or the 8-week period, you did you paid more wages, right, through the end of the year. So you can qualify for that other period. In this case, the fourth quarter of 2020, and or the portion that it wasn't PPP wages.
Great. How do we know if our PPP loan was forgiven?
you would, your bank would notify you. So if you already applied, most banks, had a portal that you had to submit all the documentation. You first had to complete the application. You then had to submit documentation. From there, the bank needs to review everything and make sure that you do qualify for forgiveness. If they know or think you do, then they will submit it to the SBA. The SBA will then go through the process as well of reviewing, making sure, and also confirm that forgiveness, notify the bank so the bank can notify you. So your bank, your lender is the one that should be letting you know.
Great. We're on our last question, so if you've got more questions, hurry up and put them in the Q&A. I tried to file for unemployment as a sole proprietor of a residential vacation rental, and as I was filling out the application, I couldn't find a category that applied to my situation, so I could not complete the application. Is there a way that I can apply?
So it is my understanding with that when you have income from a residential or from a rental, it is considered a bit different. So than just regular income. For instance, if you own properties and you receive income from managing those properties, in addition to the rental income, then that's a bit different than if you are just receiving income from your rental. So I would double check with your tax accountant, because it looks like this would probably be under Schedule E. And again, that's where I'm saying the difference between being a Schedule C filer and or having a Schedule C versus a Schedule E.
Great. Where do we apply for the RRTC credit?
Did you mean the ERTC credit?
I'll bet.
That would be the employment retention tax credit. You would apply for that through either your 941. So if you haven't filed your fourth quarter 2020 941 form, you would apply there. Or if you've already done that, then you can also apply through there is Form 7200 from the IRS. You will be able to request the advance payment of that for that credit.
Great. And I'm going to re-ask this question because we've got it 4 million times. And so we're just going to answer it one more time. I haven't heard back from the first round California relief grant. What does that mean and when will I?
Well, I just want to remind everyone, there were a significant amount of applications, right? They've had to go through the process of the ones that were eligible and complete and incomplete, right? So that was kind of one thing. Then after that, then they had to sort through the ones that were eligible and not eligible. If you were eligible, then they had to do the ones that were selected and not selected. So once they go through all that process, right? Again, there were hundreds of applicants. So once they went through that process, then once they have a determination for you, either eligible, not eligible, or accepted, or approved or not approved, they will let you know. As far as timing, it was our understanding that as of January 15th forward, they were going to start notifying applicants. I had not heard until I believe yesterday or the day before that some applicants started getting those emails. So if you haven't received one, I did mention to check your spam folder or to be patient. But you will hear, especially if you did get your username and password, you will hear from them. Just be patient.
Yes, and reminder, if you were found eligible but you did not receive round 1, you are automatically enrolled in round 2. You do not need to reapply.
Correct. And again, all of that information is going to be provided to you once they get to your application or your file.
Great. Juliana, we have come to the end.
Wow.
So I want to thank everyone for being here. Call EDC. Your taxpayers have already paid for professionals like Juliana to help you. You are not alone. I personally experienced a lot of shame asking for help, and I'm here to tell you that there is no shame. I'm glad my business still exists, and that is partly because of Juliana's help and the help of EDC. So, and also I feel this like energy, like we need more help right now, and more help is coming. Like it is coming. Please hold on. Just hold on, because there is more help coming, okay?
And can I add just something really quick? You know, as an SBDC advisor, one of the things that we have seen is, you know, the difference between when you are up to date with your books or have your financials in order versus not. I mean, I'm sure you probably hear this from either your tax accountant or your bookkeeper, but we have seen how quickly you can access these relief, you know, options or relief funds when you have everything in order. So if you don't, it's okay, but get on it. It just make sure that if you can't do anything else right now, then make sure that everything else is in order so that the minute more relief comes, you are ready. So if there's an advice I can give you, please be up to date with your books so that you can you can have the financials ready for when you need them.
Yeah, I'm gonna underscore that. And easy for you to say, you're a bookkeeper. But for us, like Joe Schmoes, who don't talk that same language, it is so hard. It's such a big task to get caught up if you're behind. And also, you know, reapplying for PPP took me 30 minutes because I'm up to date on my books. And so like, yes, use this as an opportunity, especially if business is slow, maybe because you're at reduced capacity, or maybe you're not able to operate. Use this as an opportunity to kind of like clean your house up a little bit and get some things in order.
Yes. And thank you again for joining us today. And we will see you next week on
Next week, Wednesday
at 12.
12.
12:30? 12.
12. All
Okay.
right. Bye,
All right.
everyone.
Thank you. Have a good one.